cats in the enrichment center. She also said that we were down to 6.1%, but now we're up to 9% of positive COVID cases. So what she's recommending is that we continue to be diligent with the daily health screenings on each and every person before allowing them in the building, and reminding your staff to really work on keeping that safe distance between adults. We know it's a challenge with the children, but definitely with the adults, continue to do that safe distance, and to maintain separate classrooms and don't intermingle. And then, of course, we still need to do we need to perform the daily health checks still on our children and our staff. And you want to still limit the individuals that come into your facility. And the Child Care Strong interim guidance booklet does have a list of the folks that are allowed into your programs, but you would take their temperature and you will give the health screening to them as well. And one of the things she did suggest is, as your families are coming in the morning, dropping off the children, to inform the parents about the Delta variant and how easy it is to spread. So we'll give you an opportunity to go ahead and educate our families and let them know the importance that we still need to continue our 3 Ws, still wear our face masks, just to keep everybody safe. So that is an email that Teresa sent out to all of us. And I just wanted to just share it, remind you all of it. And when you get a chance to go ahead and read the email, share it with your staff so that they're aware of it as well. Okay, so one of the things I had shared with Jamie was in my other territory that I was in the month of June, which is the end of our fiscal year with the division, I always like to run a report to see what type of violations were cited for the fiscal year, and kind of look to see if there's a trend and which ones are the most frequent violations that I observed or that I cited. And then I like to do a meeting like this, the beginning of the next fiscal year, to give us an opportunity to say, okay, this was our trend, and what can we do going forward to prevent some of these violations. So that's what we're going to do today, is just to look over some of the most frequent ones that were cited. And I know that this was not a typical year. We all know it was not a typical year, but I still wanted to go ahead and have this meeting with you, and also to hear what all of you may have put in place to prevent some of these violations from happening. And I guess that's where Jamie's going to chime in, because she had given you all a homework assignment. So Jamie, you want to share?
Yeah, so your homework assignment was to answer one of 2 questions, and unanimously everybody across the board chose to answer the question about violations, common violations at your facility, and then steps that you're taking to prevent them in the future. And just so you guys know, I did like kind of a running tally of the ones you mentioned, and they were very, very similar. So just to name a few, we had, things like the mulch, that's a common one. So you're not alone. Medications and their forms, maybe their dates being wrong, sunscreen forms was in that too. Fire drill logs. Outlet covers, that was a really common response, was outlet covers from cleaning, vacuuming at night, and then they're just not replaced, and the day starts the next day and they're still uncovered. Another very common one was plastic bags not being 5 feet up. Broken toys, both inside and outside, and then the ongoing training and background checks. Those are kind of the things that you guys mentioned. There were more than that, but these were the common ones. But you guys gave some really great individual solutions to these violations. And I really hope that you guys are willing to share, because we do want this to be a discussion, so that you guys can hear from each other about what solutions you put in place to prevent these things from happening. So this is when I want to open it up for you guys to go ahead and share about your personal violation that you wrote about, and then the solution that you found that is working for you. So if you want to just unmute yourself, I won't, call out people. Not everybody likes to talk, but some of you do. So Jennifer, go ahead.
One of ours is like the medications, the sunscreen, the forms the parents might put like as needed, or they may put like a small amount on the glove or something like that. So we have given it a on medications or the sunscreens or bug sprays, is that we give a medication size, like money size. So it might be like a quarter size, dime size into the palm of the hand, and then lather on the child's arms. So that way, when it comes to, filling out the form, it's correctly, and we do it as an admin. If the teachers don't have it, together, or they don't know that's the right way, we try to give them a form and go by it and say, this is how we're doing this. So that way they're trained also to say, okay, this is the correct way to fill out the medication form. And then that way we send it down to the parent or to the classroom. So it's right.
That's a good solution. Help them give an answer, give them an idea of how to appropriately answer the amount question. And then the as needed one, I know that's very common that parents will write as needed. So it's helpful to say, apply this sunscreen before going outdoors and reapply after X amount of time. So
Right.
helping parents understand that, and staff understand, because it's usually not the director getting every single one of these sunscreen forms. It's staff. So being very specific. Did you change your forms at all? Is it directly changed on the form?
Yes, like if they've messed up, or like we always go by and check. So like when we do compliance checks, we change it on the form so that way they it's not wrong.
Okay.
So
Does anybody else have a good solution that they wanted to share? There were some good solutions, especially whoever had the response about your playground inspections. That was a good one for other people to hear. And I don't remember names, so I can't call you out.
Hi, Jamie. This is Patsy.
Hey, Patsy.
Well, we did have the playground toys. That was one that I had submitted. We had a broken sand and water table last year, year before last, 2019, that was disposed of when the consultant was here. So what we added was that I made sure all the teachers know when they're getting the toys out of the building for the day, check them then, check them when they're putting them back up. And then when we do our playground inspections, they're checked again for that.
That's good. It's a hard one to keep up with because I know that children can be rough on things, and sometimes it takes one day and they're cracked or
When they
stepped
throw all
on.
the toys back in the buckets in the afternoons, that's usually whenever the breakage takes place. That's why if you don't catch it in the afternoon, maybe they can catch it the next day.
Hmm.
Or definitely whenever we're doing the playground inspection.
Mhm.
The
Thank you.
other one that we had was my fire drill log. So the way I fixed that from last year was that I keep a copy on a clipboard that I use every day. So that reminds me, I haven't done my fire drill this month,
Mhm.
because I see it every day, and that will remind me to do my fire drill.
Mhm.
And
That's
then I
good.
do log it right whenever we do it.
Yeah, keep it somewhere where you could see it so you don't forget. I was very big
One's,
on,
one's posted on the wall that has the time and the count, and then the other is just a blank one that reminds me.
very good. I think it's helpful for other people to hear these, little tricks that you do. I'm definitely visual. I need that visual reminder to remember things. So thank you for sharing, Patsy.
Thank you.
And Robin did share in the chat that medication is given to her first, and then she has another staff member check behind her to ensure that it's filled out correctly. Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
Me personally, for the training hours, it was a director that I had when I was a teacher, and then I copied this as a director. She would post our names and the number of hours we need based on our education, and it was up in the staff lounge. And then it was like a little chart that we filled out if we got our hours, and then you could like tally it up to see where you're at. And then the date was on there that you needed your hours by. So it was a good visual. Everybody had to clock in and clock out. So it was something we saw regularly. And as an administrator, it helped me, it kind of took something off my plate. While I made the list that was visual for everybody to see, it kind of helped put the responsibility on them. Hey, this is your stuff. Make sure you're checking it. Of course, I'd go back and check it, but it was definitely a helpful way for me to see it and them to see it. So we were all checking on each other. So it was hard to keep up with a lot of staff and all of their hours. And everybody needs a different amount of hours. And some people were in school and not in school. So that was a tough one for me. So did anybody else have any solutions before we go forward that they wanted to share with violation? All right, Carolyn, nobody else is sharing. So I'm going to go to the next slide and I'm going to give it back to you.
Okay, so one of the things I did want to share with all of you, and I know this is probably hard for all of you to see. This is, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I put my phone on mute. This is the compliance history assessment. So this document is a report that I generate every time I come out to your facility. So prior to me coming out, and as I'm preparing my visit, I go ahead and see what your compliance history is. And this is an 18-month window. So it does whatever visits happen between 18 months. And it breaks it down. And I wanted to show it to all of you. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with this. And this is something, anytime I'm out at your facility, if you want a copy, you just let me know and I can print a copy off. I do wish you could see it better. But anyway, so if you look at it on the top of the column, it'll have the date of the visit and then the type of visit. And the type of visit's either going to be an unannounced or announced. It used to say the specific type of visit, whether it was a routine unannounced or a complaint visit or an annual compliance visit. But now it just says whether it's announced or unannounced. And this is what folks would see on our website as well. So no one knows what type of visit was conducted at your facility. And depending on the type of visit, like for example, when we do an annual compliance visit, everything on this list is monitored. And everything on this list has points. So with the annual compliance, it's 100 points. If you were in compliance, you earn those points. If you weren't in compliance, there's going to be a 0. So on this one, under the safety section, this facility received 0 points under equipment. So that means they were not in compliance. They did not earn points for that. If there's a blank where there's no number, that means that was an item that was not monitored. So that was not counted. So for example, with the when we do an environment rating scale visit, which is February 11th on this form, that one, I just reviewed the environment rating scale. I did not monitor anything. So for that visit, there was no points at all. So they didn't earn points, but they didn't lose points. And then, so for this facility in 18 months, their average compliance history is 95%. The goal is you always want to make sure that your compliance history does not go under 75%. If it goes under 75%, that gives us a red flag, and it may lead to an administrative action or even may lead to you losing your star rated license and going back down to a 1 star. So like I said, this is something that I pull up every time I prior to a visit, just so I have an idea, okay, what is the compliance history at? And it also gives me an idea when I look at the points, like, okay, is there a trend here? You know, are they getting 0 points in this item? Maybe that's something I need to spend some time on providing technical assistance. So I use this as a tool to help me better help you, is basically what I use this tool for. And like I said, at any time, if you want a copy of it, you just let me know and I can print it off to you. I can email it to you. I do have some directors that already requested, and I know as soon as I do the visit to go ahead and print it off for them. So while we're also looking at this compliant history assessment, I did want to let you know that the item listing booklet, which is what us consultants use when we cite violations, we look at this item listing to find out what item number it is. And then that's what we plug into regulatory. And on this item listing, with the violation and the item number, it will also let us know how many points it is. Well, this document, and I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but this document is on our website. So it is accessible to all of you to be able to see, okay, what is the item listing? What are the violations? How many points are they worth? And that is on our website. And when you go to our provider tab, I know all of us are familiar with our website. You go to our, click on provider tab, and then you click on providing childcare. And then you click on star rated license. There you'll see where the item number listing document is. So that's there for you. Also on this page, there's a document that talks about the type of visits we do. And it will show you what on that type of visit, what are the items that we are monitoring. So that's just two helpful documents for all of you that I think a lot of us are unaware that it's even available for the child care providers. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry?
Can you repeat the name of that document?
It is called the item number listing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So like I said, I didn't know if anyone was aware of that. It is there for all of you. Does anybody have any questions about the compliance history or how that works? No? Okay. All right. So what I found interesting was when Jamie was sharing a lot of the common violations, it's actually a lot of them are the ones that I cited most this fiscal year. So I found that interesting. Some of the ones that I normally see and did not. And I think it's because I was not allowed to spend a lot of time in your facility. So I didn't have the opportunity to spend more time in the classrooms. So what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through the most common ones that were cited this year. And again, like I said, we all know that this was not a normal year. And it'll be interesting to see this time next year what it looks like. And as we go through, please let me know if you have any questions, you have need more clarification, or if you have information or some tips or some ideas that have worked at your facility that you're willing to share. So on here, we have storage, which is a sanitation rule, emergency medical care rule, administering medication rule, safety requirements, training, activity plans, and then the last is the compliance letters. And at the end, what we're going to do is talk about what needs to be in these compliance letters when you send them to me. Ready when you are, Jeannie? Okay. First big one, and not a surprise, especially after this year of cleaning and sanitizing, and I felt like all the childcare educators needed to have a tool belt, one with the sanitizing, one with the disinfecting, and one with the hand sanitizer. So it was on the person. So basically a reminder, anything that's non-aerosol, which means it's not a spray, needs to be at least 5 feet from the floor. Unless it's on the person. So for example, while outside with the children, a lot of times with the hand sanitizer, be on a picnic table or on a bench or hanging from a fence, it was not at least 5 feet up from the ground. It can be on the person or it could be at least 5 feet up from the ground. And this year also sanitizing and disinfecting, a lot of times that was found on on a cubby or on a lower shelf and not placed up at least 5 feet from the ground. So this was just a common one, reminding staff at least 5 feet up. As soon as they're done with that sanitizer or that disinfecting spray, they need to make sure that they're putting it back up so it's out of reach of the children. Hand sanitizer. We talked to sanitation about this, and hand sanitizer in the morning, they are saying it can be on the cubby as long as staff are right there with it. Because we know first thing is you want children, if the sink's not there, to get the hand sanitized. And especially in the foyer, as long as staff are there, that sanitizer can be on the table. But as soon as staff walks away from the area, we need to make sure that the hand sanitizer is at least 5 feet off from the ground or the floor. Any questions about that? Has anyone come up with some great ideas that work for them? Here is just a list. I think this document's on our website as well under provider documents, and it's just a reminder of the hazardous substances and which ones need to be locked, which ones need to be out of reach. And this is a good document maybe to have posted where your staff have their medications locked, or their diaper cleans, or right now we got sunblocks and bug sprays. But on here, one that we need to remind our staff to do is to make sure that they're loading their purses up. And the reason behind that is that they may have ibuprofen or Tylenol or perfume or hand. And most of them are going to say, you better reach the children. So just remind staff that they need to be locking their pocketbooks, their purses up. And I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the locks. And we need to remember when it's locked storage, that means you're using a combination. You have the electronic or magnetic device or an actual key. It does not include the strap locks or the latches or the sliding cabinet locks, which are most of the childproof ones that you can find. They are not considered locked. So that is one that I have seen a lot this year, is that not having the appropriate lock in place. So it's not considered locked storage unless, again, it has a combination lock, or it has the key lock, or it has an electronic or magnetic device. And another reminder too is our medications for our children that have chronic illness, that those types of medications, they do not need to be locked, but they do need to be at least 5 feet from the floor. And the reason behind that is you want staff to be able to get it quickly. So if it's in a cabinet, in a locked box, that might be a challenge if, God forbid, a child needs some medication in a hurry. So just a reminder, I know some of us go ahead and keep it in locked storage just to be on the safe side, but those emergency medications just need to be at least 5 feet from the ground. And I know some take it outside. They have a backpack, so in case they need it out there, and that's okay, but that backpack or that bag needs to be on the person, or again, that will need to be at least 5 feet from the ground. Anybody have any questions about that? No. All right.
So Carolyn, question,
Yes.
well, clarity, I
Okay.
guess. So what I'm hearing you say that is if we have an EpiPen or something, or a pump, we can keep those in the classroom as long as they are 5 feet up.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, the reason behind that, Frankie, is you want your staff to be able to have easy access to that if a child needs it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. So the next one still has to do with storage, and it has to do with storage in lavatories. In childcare centers, lavatories shall be easily cleanable, in good repair, and kept free of storage. So the only things that should be stored in your lavatories are going to be other toiletry items or cleaning supplies. The bathrooms should not have stored in them any materials or activities or furniture. That's considered a violation. So you want to make sure to remind staff that their lavatories should not be used to store anything other than toiletry supplies, the paper towels, napkins, and cleaning, make it room to be in there. So that's one that you need to remind staff about. Now, there are, I know, bathrooms that are not used by children. If they're not used by the children, then it's okay to have it in there. But if they're used by the children, you want to make sure that nothing is stored in there. I also, and I meant to tell you too, as we're going through, I wanted to let you know how many points if this was cited as a violation. So this, if you had things stored in your lavatories that should not be, that would have been 3 points. And the one with the medication, or not with the medication, with the hazardous materials, that's a 5-point violation. Okay. So this one has to do with the child care rule of emergency medical care. And this, the one that was cited the most under this rule was concerning the incident log. And with the incident log, one, you want to make sure that you're using the document that is provided by DCDEE, and there's the link below, and I think we all know where that is. It's under provider documents. The incident log, you want to make sure that you have all the information there, and that they're all listed there. I'm not going to read them word for word for you. And with this one, what I was finding was the incident reports were not documented on the incident log. Okay, so you need to make sure that every incident report that's completed, that it's going to be on this log. And again, a reminder, the incident report now is used anytime there's an incident, not just when there's not when a child needs medical attention. So you want to make sure that all the information's on this log and that this log is available for review when the child care consultant walks in. So does anyone have anything put in place to make sure that this happens? Any suggestions?
Well, I just
Carolyn,
put it in my book. I'm sorry.
Hey, Karen, this is Robin. I just went to grab my book. And I think I might have missed something. Any questions about what?
Oh, I have, if you had any suggestions as far as how to make sure that the incident log is current and up to date.
I just do it every day before I leave.
So Robin, what do you have staff do? Do you have like a box or a file that they put them in every day, or?
Well, since I do all arrivals and departures, I see the parents, and then so I get the document, and then I just put it on my desk, put it in my book, document it.
And then you document it on your incident log.
Right before I go home. Yeah, that was my question is if I would wait till the next day to do it instead of staying after hours to do it, how long do you have to document it into your log? Can it be the next day or is it that day?
I would say within 24 hours.
Okay.
Make sure to get it in. And what I was finding, Robin, there are times that they weren't in at all, or they were 2 months out, or that there be. And the reason why I asked you where if you put them in a file, because that's what happens sometimes. The staff and you directors are so busy that staff might put it on your desk, they might put it on the reception desk, and sometimes they get lost and they're not getting logged. So I was just wondering if anybody has like a central location that staff know that's where the incident log needs to go. So that way, as a director, okay, I need to pull that and make sure all this information is in the log.
Yeah, I just have a box on my door for everything to be dropped off to me. That's completed, and then I have everything pending on my calendar that's due back to me.
Any other suggestions or anything that's worked for folks?
So Carolyn,
Question.
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so,
I have a question.
oh, Amanda, you're breaking up just a little bit. It might work better if you put it in maybe the chat box. Your connection's messing up. When it came
Can
to
you
the
hear me now?
log for me, no. It says that your audio is still connecting. So when it came to the log for me, I wanted to make sure that not too many people got their hands on it, so that it wouldn't get messy or confused. So I did keep it in my office as well, and teachers would just bring me the copies at the end of the day. But I just wanted to say, from like a personal experience, buy-in for the importance of this is the biggest thing for your staff and yourselves, because keeping the log is it's going to help you for if there's a complaint. So you don't know when a complaint's going to come about a child getting injured, and we didn't used to keep one of these on file for every single injury. And it's so helpful that if a parent calls and Carolyn shows up the next day, that you have that paperwork already in that binder ready to go, that you've already had a communication in some way or another with the parent, and it's all signed and documented. It makes the whole process go smoother for everybody, the consultant, yourself, the family. So just knowing that it protects you and your staff, to show that you're doing your paperwork on your end, reiterating that to your staff might help them remember to get it done. And Amanda said, so these do not need to be filed with individual classrooms or with children files. All of them need to be kept in a separate file. That's a question. I was thinking that previously they were supposed to be attached to the child's file.
They are. So once that incident report is documented on that incident log, you want to put it in the child's file.
And Marissa said, can we have a separate log for each classroom?
You can, as long as you know that staff are being diligent and making sure that all the documentation is there. And that that they'll be able to share it with me when I come into the facility. Now, one of the other things, Jamie, I wanted to add to what you said, and you're so right in what you said, but the other important part of the incident log is it helps you as a director to see if there is a pattern, and maybe it's a pattern in one of the toddler rooms. So maybe you and staff have an opportunity to work on, okay, why are there so many incidents in this one classroom? Do we need to work on classroom arrangement? Do we need to see if you need to take some of the materials out, or do you need to add more shelves in, or is there a supervision concern in this classroom? So it helps for us to look to see if there's a pattern going on as well. This is 2 points, by the way, as a violation if the information is not logged on the incident log. Okay. So here is the most revised incident report. And as you can tell, it's a lot more detailed, and I don't think they can make the print any tinier, but there's just a couple of things I wanted to just point out on the incident report. In the lower left-hand corner, they have added, if medical treatment is required, the original should go in the child's file. So that means the medical treatment, and that's when you're sending the incident report to me, the original can't be a copy, needs to go into the child's file. And the other important piece on this is, of course, families always had to sign the incident report, but now you are required to give a copy to that parent or legal guardian. But if they do not want a copy, they need to initial. So right underneath their signature, there's a little box that they can put their initials stating that they do not want a copy. And that is basically for your safety on that. So that's the biggest difference on here. Parents and legal guardians still need to sign. They still need to get a copy, but if they're like, no, I don't want it, then you need to make sure they're putting their initials on there. And as the directors too, just make sure your staff are completing this incident report, that everything's, all the information's in there, no information is missing. The other one I wanted to point out too is if a child does receive medical attention, of course, I need to have it within 7 days. You can mail it to me or you can email it to me. But one of the things I will need to know, and you can either write it on the report or you can email it or put it in the letter. If a child receives medical attention, I will need to know when the child returns to your facility. So the child received medical attention, you want to, of course, put what type of medical attention, but then I will also need to know when the child returns. Anybody have any questions about that? So the next one is the administering of medication, and it sounds like a lot of you have had this and knew that this is one of the most top violations that is cited. And the biggest one again is making sure that families are completing the form, that they have all the information there. And the pieces of information that I have observed that has been missing is either the validation dates, and this is more so for our topical creams, our sunblock, or bug spray, or diaper creams, teething gel, validation date. So remember and remind staff that topical creams, that medication can be good up to 12 months. But the validation dates need to be on that form. From what date to what date is that medication good for that child? And the biggest one, and it sounds like some of you have something, who's the one that Jennifer mentioned about being specific and actually having the wording right on the medication administration form. That is a big one that people are putting as needed, or they're not putting anything down as the amount. They need to be specific on the amount that they want on the child, because what your staff might think is enough may not be what the parents think is enough. So, being specific, quarter size, dime size, nickel size, 2 pumps, if you're talking about the sprays, or, fingertip size, palm size. So just make sure that information is on there. And I get, when it comes to medication administration forms, that in the morning when our families are trying to drop the children off and rushing out, and they're handing the medication administration form to your staff, that sometimes they don't have time to look to make sure that all the information is on there. But it is important that it is looked at to make sure that it is. And I guess this year again has been different because parents aren't coming in. So I guess they're probably handing it to you right at the door, along with 12 other families that are waiting in line to come through the door, and as you're taking temperatures and asking the health screening questions. But just make sure that all the information is on those forms. This is considered a 5-point violation if the administration form is not fully completed. So it's important that we make sure that it is. And this is just the most current form. And again, you can use you can develop your own form as long as all the information that's on this one is on yours. And then You know, it sounds like some of you have added the specific amount, which would be a good reminder to parents to make sure to fill that out. So a good rule of thumb to tell your staff is if there's a blank, it's something should be in there. With the other thing I want to mention too with the medication administration permission forms is you need to make sure once that medication is completed, it needs to go in the child's file for 6 months. So when a medication administration form is done, the validation date is done, the medication is done, the form needs to go on the child's file. Anybody have any questions about that? Now on our website, under provider documents, we have this medication administration checklist that that was developed by the NC Child Care Health and Safety Center. And this is a great reminder for your staff, and maybe they can have it posted in their room, or maybe they do keep their medications, and basically it just helps them to remember, okay, what is it that we need on these forms? What is it that we need to do? Just a good reminder, maybe something you can review during a staff meeting, or when you're spending time maybe with one of your teachers and talking about their staff development plan. I also do want to remember the North Carolina Child Care Health and Safety Center. Their website is a great resource. They have lots of great information. They have lots of fact sheets, especially on communicable diseases. They have sample forms, posters, newsletters that would be great for your families to share with your staff, to post as reminders. Just a great resource to go visit, and maybe even have your staff visit. A lot of good information they have there. Still talking about medication. This one is 5 points as a violation, and this is when medication does not go home after it expired, or after the validation date expires. The medication, whether it be diaper cream or whatever it may be, needs to go home within 72 hours of that validation expiration date. And this is one that I've seen a lot. And I think what happens a lot of times is a child in maybe the toddler room has diaper cream, and then moves up to the next classroom. Diaper cream doesn't go, a child stays in the classroom, and I go to monitor it, and the medication administration form have expired. So does anybody have anything in place at their facility to prevent this from happening?
Carolyn, I use a transition sheet when a child goes from one room to the next, and that's just one of the items listed there: their clothes, their diapers, any medications, their family photos, things like that. They just have a checklist to move it all.
Okay, so when they're transitioning up into the next classroom, and everyone's aware whether medication needs to go home then, or go with the child.
Correct.
Okay. I would suggest too that just maybe at the end of the week, that just have staff just look through their medication box just to see if there is anything that needs to be up to date. Just so they are aware of the validation dates on the medications, because this is a very simple task, but can also be costly if cited as a violation. Are there any questions about medication? So basically the two that I saw the most this year was medication not going home when it needed to, and that the medication administration forms for topical creams did not have all their information. Mostly it was the validation dates and the specific amounts. And those were the two big ones with the medication administration forms. So the next is safety requirements and. Oh, I'm sorry.
Carolyn, we had
Yep.
one question in the chat box.
Okay.
Amanda asked if that form, so I put it back to the slide, if this is from the DCDE website.
It is, it's under provider documents.
Thank you. I will go back to your current slide.
Yeah.
Right here?
So, yep. So in the beginning, some of you had mentioned that one of the violations cited frequently had to do with fire drills. So that was not what I saw this year, so yay. But I did see our shelter in place and lockdown drills were not being conducted quarterly. And my guess is because of COVID-19. I think there was a misunderstanding that they were not to be conducted. And they were. That was not one of the flexibilities that were put in place. And that there were concerns. I think some of you had concerns that we're going to be in close quarters and with a lockdown or a shutdown. But they were to be done quarterly, even during this COVID-19 mess, because we want to make sure that our children and our staff know exactly what to do if, God forbid, if something were to happen that they need, that it wasn't a drill and it was an actual lockdown or shelter in place. We just want to make sure that everybody has been trained, has had their drills, and knows what to do in case of an emergency like that. So this one, I after looking at it and seeing how many times it was cited, I understand that. I think it was because everyone was just concerned with the COVID-19. But again, this was not one that became a flexibility. So just make sure that you're doing either lockdown or shelter in place quarterly, and make sure you're documenting it on the form. One thing I do want to mention is you want to make sure you're not doing your fire drill and then your shelter in place or lockdown drill on the same day. You want to make sure that you're doing those on separate days, because in an actual emergency, it's probably going to be a fire drill, or it's going to be a fire and you need to exit because of fire, or it's going to be because you need to do shelter in place or lockdown. So just make sure you're keeping them separate, making sure you're documenting them on the emergency drill log, and make sure you have all the information on there. Okay. So while we're on safety requirements, I did have a note on here. One of the other biggies that was cited a lot was outlets, the electrical outlets, and that was mentioned in the beginning of this presentation. So I did want to share with you two things that I've seen over the years that folks have done. So a lot of times we know the safety cover gets taken off and not placed on. Usually it's because of the cleaning crew the night before. And staff may not have time in the morning to go ahead and monitor whether they're in or not. So one thing I've seen is people have bought Velcro, and they put Velcro on the safety cover, and then they'll put Velcro on the wall. So when the safety cover is pulled out, it's just not stuck right onto the Velcro. Another has been where someone has taken a solder iron and melted a little hole in the outlet cover, took fishing line. So they put the fishing line through the hole in the outlet cover, and then they'd unscrew the screw on the plate, and they'd wrap the fishing line around the screw and then tighten up the screw. So that way, when the outlet cover was pulled out, it just hung right there, and that way it could be placed right in. So they're just two things that I've seen that seem to work for some facilities. But yeah, that is definitely one we see a lot. And just reminding staff, in the mornings or before the children get in there, just to do a quick monitoring of the classroom, just to make sure that all their cleaning supplies are up where they need to be, or locked where they need to be, and that their safety covers are on their electrical outlets. That is 3 points with the safety covers. And even if it is taken care of during the visit, we do put it as corrected during visit, but it's still considered a violation. The other two, Jamie had mentioned is mulch. Is making sure that mulch is at least 6 inches in depth around the whole bubble of your stationary equipment, which is 6 feet. So you want to make sure 6 feet around, you have the 6 inches of mulch in depth. Where we see it the most is going to be when the children are coming down on the slide, or the area where they climb up onto the structure or underneath swings. So just making sure, again, staff should be monitoring the outdoor area daily. So just making sure that underneath the swings and underneath the slides, that we have at least 6 inches of mulch there. And I know with the rain, it's hard, just making sure it's getting fluffed up, just making sure people are getting out there and measuring the depth of that mulch. Did someone
Carolyn,
have yes.
I had a question about the outlet covers. So we're housed in an elementary school, and in the classroom, we can monitor the covers pretty well. But we go to the cafeteria twice a day for breakfast and lunch. So in our traveling, there are outlets. Are they considered, do they have to be covered also?
If the children have access to them. So if the outlets are, say, where your little ones are sitting and they're right there is an outlet that doesn't have covers, they would need to be covered, yes.
Okay.
Good question, Mo. Jamie, do we have others?
No more questions in the chat box, so we're good there.
Does anyone, no one has questions about the emergency drills?
No,
No, okay.
we're good there.
Okay, so again, this ongoing training was one that some of you had mentioned too as frequent violations. And Jamie gave a suggestion as far as what to do. This table is just a reminder of how many hours folks need depending on their education and their experience. And then also under this childcare rule in the rule book, they do also have it broken down. If you have staff that are not working full time, they do have it prorated as far as how many hours that they're required to have. Now on this one, this past year, again, it's been a challenging year for all of us, but you need to make sure that whatever training your staff are taking, that it's getting documented on that staff and training log. Okay, that is because what's, again, just like when we're talking about the incident logs, that if they're handing you training certificates and it's not in a central location, then it's not going to get documented on the in-service training log. And then when it's time to count up those hours, a lot of times the certificates, and I'm being told that staff have taken the training, but the certificates cannot be found. So I know Jamie mentioned, what is it that all of you have in place that you have found that has worked to keep on task as far as this in-service training and making sure you have the documentation? Is it something you have staff take responsibility for? Are you keeping it in individual staff files, or do you have a specific green binder that's just specifically for in-service training hours? No suggestions?
I keep a notebook with all of my staff listed in it, even myself. And I have the date that each staff member has to have their hours by. And I am the only one that keeps up with that.
Okay. So
And as
Kimberly,
they get out, and as they get their hours, I log it in of course, it's logged in their staff book, and then I'll log it in a notebook that is in my office.
so Kimberly, how does staff give you their training certificates? Do they just hand them to you, or?
Most of them email them to, well, now with COVID, most of them just email them to me, but I don't let the staff, handle any of that. I keep up with it.
Okay.
I do make them a copy of their certificate because most of them want it.
Right,
But,
right.
Yes, ma'am. But no, ma'am, I am the only one that handles all of that. I keep up with it. And another thing I do is I have a calendar that is posted in my office. And each month as I flip over, I go to that notebook, and if, for example, Sally Brown has got to have 2 more hours by July 31st. Well, on July the 1st, when I flip that calendar, I'm going over telling her, you've got to have X amount of hours, but they are notified well in advance.
Thank you, Kim. We have 2 questions, Carolyn.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is the point value for not having the training hours?
That is 2 points.
Sorry, what was the answer? That was my
2
fault.
points.
2 points.
Yeah.
And then the second list is, so what's on the screen right now, is this for full-time employees only? And is it less hours if you're a part-time employee?
Yes, this is for full-time employees only, and for part-time. So if you have a staff member that's working 0 to 10 hours a week, they need 5 hours, 5 in-service training hours. If you have a staff member that works 11 to 20 hours a week, they need 10 hours. A staff member that works 21 to 30 hours needs 15. And then 31 to 40 would go back up to the list that's right there.
So full-time starts at 31 hours.
Yeah.
You guys.
And one of the other things I want to just mention here too, because I know that staffing right now has been a true challenge for all of you. And I just want to put this out there that if you are getting to the point that you are hiring folks that do not have their credential and do not have at least 1 year of experience, they are going to need 20 in-service training hours their first 6 months, and then an additional 20 the second 6 months. So again, this is only if you are hiring staff that do not have their EDU 119 or equivalent, and do not have 1 year's experience. So if you are hiring someone that way, I would strongly encourage them to go ahead and get their EDU 119 within that 6 months, because you know that a college semester hour in early childhood equal 1 semester hour equals 16 contact hours. So if you're hiring someone again that does not have their credential and does not have their experience, they need 20 in-service training hours the first 6 months, and then an additional 20 by their 1 year anniversary.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
After their 1 year anniversary, once they get their training hours they need for that 1 year, can everybody be on the same schedule from a January to December, getting that many hours that they need?
Okay, this is how hours are counted, Angela. So say, when was I out there doing your annual compliance visit? Do you remember what month?
I don't remember. Last month, I think, June.
Okay.
June.
June. Okay, so I did your annual compliance in June.
Right.
So all your existing staff will need to have their in-service training hours by the anniversary of when I did your annual compliance visit.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was just, somebody else was speaking, and I thought maybe it had to be by their year, but it's
No.
fine to go by your year.
Yeah, right, except,
Okay.
and now now say for example, you hire a new staff member in April of 2022. That staff member would not be required to have their training hours by June of 2022. That they'll have a whole year. if
Okay,
that makes
that's,
sense.
I was just making sure.
Yeah, it does get confusing after a while.
Thank you.
That's why my hands are going like this, so I can figure that out. Anyone else have any other questions about in-service training hours? Again, make sure it's, it's getting documented on the log. And one of the other suggestions I would have to you is put some of this on your, on responsibility of the staff. Maybe maybe include this in their staff development plan that needs to be done annually. Say, okay, by such and such a date, you need this many hours. And maybe even have it by then, Rowan Smart Start will have the list of workshops that they have coming up. And then you also have our Moodle trainings on the division's website. Go ahead and have them write out, okay, this is what I'm going to take by such and such a date. So that way it's not all on you. Put some of the responsibility on them. We know that overall your responsibility, but let them have some ownership. And maybe that way they'll even be more mindful as far as what they'll take. They'll be more intentional of the trainings that they'll take, trainings that will be beneficial in their classroom and not because they need their hours.
We have one more question. How exactly do you want the prior experience documented? Like, is their resume good to show that they've had a year experience?
Well, you have your resume and they have their application for their experience, and then for their education, that should all be on Works. So for experience, you're taking whatever they have on their resume and application, but it needs to be documented somewhere on that application and resume. And then for their education, that needs to be in Works.
And that was it for questions there.
So we're still going to talk a little bit about training, but we're going off of the ongoing training or the in-service training hours and talking about health and safety training requirements. The one that I had cited most concerning the health and safety training requirements had to do with the recognizing and responding to suspicions of child maltreatment training. What I had found is that staff that have been there longer than 90 days haven't had that training. Or there's been times that staff couldn't find their training certificates, and they've come from another facility. They said that they've had the training, but they don't have the training certificate. So if they do not have the training certificate, it cannot be counted. And this is one of those trainings that there wasn't a flexibility for during COVID-19, because this is a training that, of course, is online and it's the required training that you need to take, which is on the Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina. So, making sure staff know that they need to get that training done within 90 days. It's free, it's online, and that if you have staff coming from other facilities, that they are having that training certificate with them. So yeah, that was the biggest for the health and safety trainings. I do want to remind everyone too that these health and safety trainings that used to be on Pro Solutions are no longer, well, they're still on Pro Solutions if you want to pay for it. The contract ended with the division. So the division has the health and safety trainings on our professional development tab under Moodle, and they are free. You get the contact hours, of course, the first aid, CPR, and then Prevent Child Abuse is on there. And then I think there's just one of the medication administration forms that's not on there, but the link is on how to access it. And I think a lot of us are probably coming up to our 5-year mark. Just a reminder that these trainings need to be done every 5 years. So just remind staff of that. And make sure that so we have the in-service training log. And then we also have the health and safety training log. Make sure you're using that with your staff so everyone can keep track of the trainings that they have taken and the ones they still need to take, And that's also the document that as consultants, we will be monitoring to make sure that everyone is getting their health and safety training is completed. Any questions about that?
We do have one question going back to the training hours. I think this is a good question. So we talked about for employees without ED 119 or an equivalent, or not having the 1-year experience. What happens if they are part-time without those things? If they are a part-time employee, do they still need the 20 hours in the first 6 months and then another 20 in the next 6 months? If
They
they're
would
only-
need, it would need the 20 hours within the first 6 months, but then you would use that prorated list.
Okay,
the
so
one that-
prorated list applies to the second 6 months for part-time.
Right. But they still need that 20 hours the first 6 months.
Okay.
And then
Hi,
once
I have,
go ahead, Nona.
okay, my question is with the health and safety training requirements that for those of us that are coming up to the 5 years, I'm thinking I understood at the time that when you take it the second time, you can't count those training hours. Is that correct, or can we?
You can, of course, other than first aid and CPR, they've never counted. But yeah, no, they still count normal.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, Amanda, I think that probably answered your question. The child maltreatment, it is every 5 years.
Now, the main one, that 2-hour one there, that only needs to be taken once. And then there's a one that is on Pro Solutions, or not Pro Solutions, Moodle. That's a shortened version. But the first time around, the first get-go, you do need to take that one that's right there on that link.
Thank you. That's the last of those questions in the chat.
I want another clarification here. For the health and safety training requirements, you said that the hours don't count toward training, like for the first aid and CPR. Is that correct?
Yeah, training, contact hours never counted for CPR and first aid.
Okay, because of being told that they do, depending on the person giving it. So that's not the case.
That's not the case, no.
Okay, thank you. for that.
Carolyn, just so you know, prior to me being in Rowan County and yourself, there were credit hours being given for CPR first aid. That is why there's confusion. There is from my.
Oh, no
age.
confusion, no confusion now.
Okay, so she is right. And that doesn't mean that it didn't happen in the past. That is why there's confusion, but Carolyn is right, and it was wrong that they were given out because it's not allowed.
Now, I will say back in the day, and now I'm going to age myself, but I think in the late 80s, early 90s, I think it could count if you were one of those folks that needed those 20 plus 20 hours. But that's going back a long time, but yeah, you can't count them anymore.
Thank you for asking that, Paula, because there's probably a couple people that need a clarification on that.
I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Any others? No? Okay. All right, so this right here that you're looking at, oh, I did want to say, let me look back and see how many points it was that you received if you didn't get your. Yeah, it was 3 points if you did not have your recognize and respond to child maltreatment training or certificate. Okay. So here we're going to talk a little bit about activity plans, or what we normally call them our lesson plans. And this right here that I put up here, this is part of the North Carolina General Statute. And so basically what it states is that a planned schedule of developmentally appropriate activities displayed in a prominent place for parents to review, and the appropriate materials and equipment available to implement the scheduled activities. So I just wanted to put that up there just to remind everyone that lesson plans need to be posted well, under normal circumstances, where parents could review them. And also too, when your staff are working on their lesson plans and they're putting activities on there, they need to make sure that they have the equipment and materials to implement these scheduled activities. You know, there are times where I'll walk in and they might be doing something on the beach, and talking about looking at seashells in the science area, and then I don't see any seashells in the science area. So you need to make sure when staff are planning that they actually have the materials and equipment available. So basically I can look at that lesson plan and I can see the materials, and not just for me for monitoring, but even for staff saying your teacher's out and you need to have someone come in there to take over. Well, you want that person that comes in to be able to look at that lesson plan and know exactly what they need to do and what materials to use. So just reminding staff to make sure that what they're posting on the lesson plan, that they're able to carry out on that. So this is a general statute, 110-9112. And then on the next slide is when we're talking about the childcare rules and the activity plans. Okay, so again, COVID-19 was, this past year has been crazy, and I know we just all want to put it behind us, but this is one that I was surprised I did see a lot, but I also know that classrooms were not in use, or staff, or whatever reason, there were a lot of times that I wouldn't even see a activity plan posted. So with that said, I'm going to put it out there to all of you. Share with, what do you have in place to ensure that your staff are posting their activity plans, and maybe share with what protocol do you have in place as far as making sure that they are posted and that they are accurate? Anyone want to share?
Something that we have started, we have GroupMe. So sometimes we will have the teachers to upload their lesson plan and take a picture of it, along with making sure that they get their sanitizing bottles. We have a picture of their lesson plan posted on Monday and their bottles, and they send it to the administrator when they first arrive in the morning, so that we know that their lesson plan is posted. First thing in the morning, we can see it's up to date. Plus, that's the first thing that I check on Monday. Is I go to every classroom and I visually walk in and say, do you have your lesson plan? Is it posted? Is the date? And then it is also sent to one of our other staff members, and she checks them on Thursday to make sure on Thursday, the week before, that they have the right date and that they're age appropriate. And so then they are sent back to the staff to send out to the families. And then we're also seeing
Jennifer, we lost you.
and then that way, if they sorry, can you hear me?
I can now. We lost you when you said on Thursday, and then you
They're
also
sent to another staff member, and she checks them to make sure they all have the correct dates on them. And then that way the teacher can correct anything, making sure they're age appropriate and all the materials are accounted for, and then they're sent back to the staff to send out to the families and to the admin.
So it's good to make sure that someone's looking at them on Thursday, so that gets time, like if they need certain materials to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other protocols that anyone wants to share? What's worked for your programs?
I have a question, for Jennifer, but I don't see her. She must be somewhere. I was just wondering, in the beginning of what she was saying, it kind of blocked out for me. So I just questioned, what was the way that you were communicating with the staff, or what did you have them send it to you through?
So they would send a picture through GroupMe. It's an app, or they can send it to us, so that way we can see it, like we can see it visually, and then that way, we can go down there and check after they do it. So
But it
that way
was-
it's following through. It's called Group Me.
Group Me. Okay, thank you.
Or email, whatever works for you and your staff. But that's first thing in the morning before they, the children arrive, that they have it done. Or on Fridays before they leave for the day. That's also a good thing, is that they have plenty of time to have their lesson plans sent in by Wednesday to the admin who checks them. And so that way by Friday, they should have the opportunity to print them, have it up for the week, behind their one for Friday. And then on Monday, all they have to do is just take it down and it's there. So we can try to encourage that before they leave on Friday.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share?
There's not anything in the chat box.
I just want to stay on this slide just a little bit longer. So going back to how we talked about the in-service training hours, and if you're hiring new people that do not have the experience and do not have the credential, make sure that they are understanding foundations. I know there's trainings out there. I know that Jamie's available for technical assistance, that they understand the domains, that they know where that foundations book is and how to use it. Maybe that even can be part of their staff development plan for your new folks. And just, I want us to be proactive. In my heart, I just feel that we're going to be finding more folks that have not been in our field yet. And we just need to remember that we need to make sure that we're providing the technical assistance and support so they can be successful, so they'll stay in our field. So yeah, just making sure that our staff are aware of what foundations is all about, and that they're being mindful when they are planning their lesson plans or activity plans, that they're keeping all 5 domains in the forefront of their mind, so that they can be intentional as they are thinking of things to do with their children. I just wanted to throw that out there, that just keep in mind with foundations and the importance of using foundations, and that all our staff are aware and are comfortable using foundations and the domains. Okay. Hey, Jamie. Okay. So again, still, we're going to talk about activities and schedules just a little bit longer. We need to make sure that in our activity areas that staff have, for children over 3, that they have sufficient quantity of materials in each activity center to allow at least 3 children to use. So in each one of our activity areas, we want to make sure there's 3 different activities. And of those 3 different activities, that there's at least enough of each of those activities that at least 3 children can be in that activity area. Now, this past year, for example, language has just been a challenge because of cloth materials and dress up clothes in our home living area. But now hopefully we'll be starting to go back to allowing those materials, that we just remind our staff that we make sure we have enough materials in those activity areas. And it's funny that the big, even before COVID-19, the language area always seemed to be a challenge. And just remind staff that, the language area is not just about books and puppets. You've got felt boards and felt pieces. You've got magnetic letters you can use. You can make, homemade letter cards, and you can have phones in there. Anything that's going to encourage language and reading and things like that can be in the language area. And I would probably say that's probably the one activity area that seems to be the biggest challenge. The other thing I wanted to mention with the activity plans is the gross motor piece. on gross motor, remind your staff that a gross motor activity needs to be planned daily. It does not matter whether it's indoors or outdoors, but something needs to be planned that the children are encouraged to use their gross motor muscles. Free choice is not an activity. So reminding staff not to write, free choice should not be anywhere on that activity plan because the children should have free choice every day anyway. So just remind staff, gross motor activity, they need to have one plan each day. You got music and movement, you got, Red Rover, anything that they're using their gross motor muscles. So remind staff, every day, there should be some type of gross motor activity planned on their activity plan. Weekly, they should have on their lesson plan, music and rhythm, science and nature, and sand and water. That's been taken off the no list, but I am also right now not concerned about that because I do understand if facilities do not want to use that, especially now that our numbers are going back up. But with science and nature, don't have them just write science and nature. Well, what is it that they're going to do that has to do with science and nature? What is it that they're going to do with music and rhythm? What activities are these? You need to be specific. So, music and rhythm, science and nature weekly, but then remember that is minimal requirements. So for those of you that are reaching for those higher points in your program standards, those are things that you're going to want to offer daily. Anyone have any questions about that?
We have one question, and it's just clarification that DCDEE is still recommending that facilities limit soft materials, sensory, and water play.
That's not coming from DCDEE, that's coming from our health officials. So yeah, now water and sand play you can use. You can use that now, but you need to make sure that staff is diligent about the cleaning and sanitizing and hand washing. So you are able to use them now. You just need to make sure that everyone is doing their part as far as the washing of hands and the cleaning and the sanitizing. And like I said, I would understand, especially now at Rowan County, I would understand if I were to walk into a program and did not see that on the activity plan. And while we're talking about that too, Jamie, the health and safety guidance, our toolkit, I know that they're working on it and I'm surprised it hasn't come out yet, but they are condensing it. I think it's going to come down to 7 to 9 pages. And so hopefully you'll see that soon and we'll be able to see what else has been lifted or what else is going to be continued. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that sometime soon. Any other questions, Jamie?
Nope, that's it for now.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about compliance letters. Now, with compliance letters, that is the document that you email or send me by mail anytime a violation is cited at your facility. And on these compliance letters, we want to make sure that you have your name of your program and your ID number and the date of the visit and list the item number of the violation. And the item number you will find listed on your visit summary. And once you list the item number of the violation, you're going to state when you fixed the violation, how was it fixed, and what have you put in place to prevent it from happening again. Now, just a reminder that your facility must be in compliance at all times. So basically, if you can get those violations corrected when I'm there, that's great. You need to make sure you get them corrected as soon as possible. And I'm required to receive that compliance letter within 14 calendar days. Normally I'll put the date I need to have it by in the visit summary. And what I'm going to start doing, and I'm required to do this now, is I will be emailing you a reminder after 10 days of my visit if you have violations to remind you that, hey, I haven't gotten the compliance letter, this reminder, you need to make sure you get it to me. If I do not receive the compliance letter within the 14 calendar days, I'm required to conduct a follow-up visit. So effective July 1st, us consultants have gotten the okay that we are now allowed to conduct other visits other than complaints and annual compliance visits, and that we are allowed to stay longer in facilities in the classrooms to do more observations. So I just wanted to, a lot of the compliance letters, the division is coming down a lot harder and making sure that these are getting taken care of. So just make sure anytime a violation is cited, that you're getting that compliance letter to me with all the information within 14 calendar days. If I don't receive it, I'm required to conduct a routine unannounced visit. If at any time there is a violation that is cited, and for whatever reason, it cannot be corrected within those 14 days, you need to let me know as soon as possible, because now we're required, anytime that happens, we need to get that approved by our supervisor. So the sooner I know, the better, because if I'm not told until 2 days before that correction letter is due to me, that may cause a problem as far as administrative action. So we need to make sure that we're being proactive anytime these violations are cited, that we're doing our best to get them corrected, have a plan in place to prevent them from happening again. And if at any time, like the one scenario I think of is mulch, because I know that's been one that's been cited, and there's been times that, you're able to show me that I've ordered it, here's my invoice, it cannot be delivered until such and such a time. Let me know that as soon as possible, because that I can go ahead and show my supervisor, yes, they're trying to get in compliance. This is the reason they're not. They have ordered the mulch. But if they see that the date of the mulch is the day before the letter was due, that won't fly. So just make sure that anything that cannot be corrected within those 14 calendar days, you're letting me know as soon as possible, so we can go ahead and get that approved, so we don't have any concerns with your facility. Any questions about compliance letters? Yeah. Okay. The other thing when I mentioned now we're able to do other visits, I did want to let everyone know that of course I'll still continue to do annual compliance visits. I'm trying to get everyone back onto their normal window of annual compliance visits. I will begin to do routine unannounced visits, and normally I try to do those within 6 months after your annual compliance visit. I just wanted to let you know that those will start up again, as well as the routine unannounced. And just like when we talked about the compliance history assessment, I said annual compliance, everything's monitored for 100 points. Routine unannounced, it varies. And a lot of times with routine unannounced, I like doing routine unannounced because it gives me more time to be there for support, and if you have any questions, more time to be able to spend time with you. Any questions? I hope this was helpful. And like I said, this is something I've done every year, and hopefully everybody be up for it again in July 2022, and hopefully by then it'll be more of a normal fiscal year for all of us.
This was very informative, Carolyn, even to myself, especially those required hours. The part-time in the second 6 months, that was new to me too. I don't know if everybody saw it, but I did put the survey evaluation in the chat box. If you could please complete that. we have a chat box question that says, if we are struggling to get children to keep masks on at any given time, what kind of violation would that be?
That would not be a violation. And right now, as far as at least the toolkit that's out right now, it's children 5 and above that should be wearing masks. So we're not going to cite a violation if a child is struggling, but would encourage, you to practice the 3 W's, making sure that if that child's coughing or putting their fingers in their mouth, that we're making sure that those hands get washed. Yeah, it is a challenge. At least we know outdoors they don't need to have them on. Staff should still be wearing them. Making sure you're still continuing to do the temperatures and the health and safety screening questions. The temperatures, making sure you're documenting them. You only need to keep them for 30 days. And again, until I don't know what this next toolkit will say, if that's still going to be something we'll need to do. My guess probably will be because of the new variant.
Carolyn, I have a question. With the masks, are staff able to take them off outside?
They are, as long as they're able to practice safe distance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? No?
No, if nobody else has any questions, just don't forget that evaluation. We very
And thank
much
you everyone for your time today. I appreciate everything that you're all doing for the children and families you serve.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I second that. And thank you too, Carolyn.
You're welcome. Till tomorrow night.
All right, you guys, as you finish your evaluation, you can log out and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
I did record this if anybody needs it later. I probably won't have it uploaded till tomorrow.